am currently recording this, just so you know. I am going to put this up on this test, what are the Neo page, this Neo page, just so that you have access to this as well. I would still suggest, as we're going through things, especially as I start going through content, you still take notes and things like that. But just so you know, and for your friends who are like, I'm gonna miss it, or for whatever reason, they also can have access to some of this stuff too. But just to start out, like I said before, thank you. Listen, I know that you are all super busy with 1,000,001 things going on, and I know for some of you too, this is not the only AP class that you are taking. So thank you for being here. I do truly, truly, truly appreciate your time. Just as a heads up for how this sort of thing is working. And first things first, for those of you that don't know me, I'm Mr. Oftedal. If you're in Miss Jacobson's class, it is wonderful to have you. Glad you're here. It's fantastic to see people who I haven't seen in an entire semester, other than in the halls every once in a while, or when you guys pop in randomly, which has been so much fun as well. But it's great to see you guys, and I'm glad that we're going to get to do this together. Here's how these review sessions kind of go. We're going to start out practicing multiple choice questions each time. Why? Because stimulus-based questions are hard. So we're gonna go through that. Each time we're gonna break it up by different time periods. I'm then gonna do a little bit of a lecture, not a little bit, usually they're fairly big, on the major ways of the world that shaped human existence during each time period. So if I were you, despite the fact that there's going to be a video on it, I'll be honest, sometimes the videos don't work because I'm not the most technically savvy. I've been pretty good with QuickTime Player, but anyway. Even though there are videos, what I would do is I'd have a pen or a pencil and a piece of paper or your iPads I see out, and just record things that you were like, boy, I totally forgot that. And so it's stuff like that. If it's things that you already knew, I think listening is also good as well. After the content, then we're going to go into a little bit of essay prep. Today, my big thing is to just make sure that we have time to review the rubric for the long essay questions. If we have time, maybe start brainstorming an essay question. See if you can practice brainstorming an essay that you haven't seen before to see how that goes. So that's just in general. Basic rules. Again, when you're in here and we're doing multiple choice, this is practice. And we're going to practice like we play. And on the AP exam, like I said, you have no friends. So when we're in here, I want you to practice not having any friends. When I'm doing talking, yes, I'm going to make all of those cheesy jokes that you were hoping to forget. I'm going to continue making those, so you are going to laugh. But I ask that when we do, hopefully you laugh, maybe you won't. If we do get off track a little bit, I just ask that we rein it in as much as possible. This is also your time. If you feel like, oh shoot, I gotta go, I got a chemistry test tomorrow or a biology exam, quiz, project, whatever. If you gotta go in the middle of it, I'm not going to be offended, as long as there's not like a mass exodus. If everybody leaves at once, I'll be honest, I'll probably be slightly offended. So maybe like, one at a time, you guys can do that, but just so you know that's there. And if you have questions, please ask. Please ask. Because I guarantee it, if you have a question, somebody else in this room has a question. Guaranteed. But they just are too afraid because apparently I'm big and scary. Despite the fact that I don't have my beard anymore. Oh, it's so weird. You look so weird. You look like Isai. And then there was... So anyway... Just to give you a few tips before we dive into the multiple choice. Really? Like literally from day one. I don't think I've shaved the beard all year. Just to give you a few heads up, but just by a raise of hand. For how many of you is this your first AP exam? Just raise your hand. Okay, good. So what I'm going to tell you right now is everything you need to expect for the AP exam. Ready? Stress. Ladies. You guys don't know this, but Diego spends every single morning in my room, and he walks in every day. How you doing, Diego? Stress. It points to the date on the board. Anyway, so the AP exam is on May 17th. On May 17th. It is at 8 a.m. on May 17th. Now, May 17th is a Thursday. For the rest of the school, it is late start. It is the anti-late start for you. Because you are going to be at school by 7:30 in the morning. 7:30 in the morning. Does that make sense? If you show up at 8, the door might be closed and the exam might have already started, and then I don't know what happens to your money after that. Does that make sense? So you need to be there. And the reason for that is this. Before the exam, you are going to have to do in some, just like any standardized test, you're going to have to do some bubbling in of information and different things like that. Can you please do me a favor? And I will try to check in on this before next review session. Can you ask your proctor, and for Ms. Jacobson, don't listen to the class, don't listen to this. Can you ask, or do it actually for Ms. Jacobson, actually do that. Ask your proctor if they have instructor codes for you. If you're in my class, please see if they, and I'll see if I can find my instructor code. The reason for that is then we can gather data for just test scores by teacher and things like that. So if you're in Jacobson's class, do that. If you're in my class, do that. Otherwise, I have to deal with this massive Excel document over the summer, and I literally have to one by one pick out my students, and then look at the score, and then break it up by semester, and then I know, and then you die. Okay. So, 7:30 in the morning, you are going to be at in the classroom, ready to go. Before you get here, you, just like soldiers in World War I, are going to eat breakfast, because breakfast is the most important meal of the day. And no, none of the Cinnamon Toast Crunch Fruit Loops garbage. You will eat a protein-filled breakfast. You like eggs? You're not eat eggs. If you like yogurt, eat yogurt. Whatever it is, it can be the Greek kind, or the new trend is Icelandic. But whatever kind of protein-filled meal that is going to keep you full. Please, I know, some of you don't eat breakfast. Eat breakfast. Your brain needs it. You're going to be exhausted. Okay? Things to bring to the AP exam. Number 1, Sierra got it. Snacks. Please bring a power bar, a Cliff bar, a granola bar, some sort of protein-filled snack. Yes, if you really need to, because I know some of you have to, you can have it in individual little Tupperware. That's okay. You can do that. Right? Or you can be Conrad and just have an entire grocery store in your backpack. Whatever it is you need to do, but please, again, make sure it's protein-filled. Don't flaming hot Cheetos me. That's not going to help you. Not going to help you. Second thing that you need to make sure that you bring are at least 2 number 2 pencils. As long as it's number 2. The lead has to be number 2. Got it? Listen. Again, side conversations. I know I'm really funny. Side conversation. I need back. 2 number 2 pencils. In addition, 2 black pens. This is going to be hard for you. I'm sorry, students from Southern California. You have to learn how to commit, because you will be writing your essays in pen. Oh, no. The stress level in this room. Oh! It's okay. Because if you make a mistake, listen. If you make a mistake, all you have to do, that's it. You don't need to color it in. You color in the bubbles for the multiple choice. You don't need to color in your mistakes. No, but you want as clear of an essay as possible. Also, the last thing you want is to run out of ink. So make sure, I know, Simone, and that's why I say at least 2 black pens. And I would test them. In fact, I would just go out and get new pens. Okay? So you need snacks. You need 2 pencils at least, maybe 3 just because. And then you need at least 2 black pens in case you run out of ink. That should be fine. Cool? Things you should leave at home. Probably your Apple Watch. You're going to want that cell phone in your backpack. I know that's worse than the pen. No, they make you turn them in. So just so you know, make sure your cell phones are not on you. If your cell phone goes off and they catch you, your test will not count. Nope. I wouldn't even. Nope. Just it's not around. Cool. So that's that. Okay. Here's how the test is going to be formatted. Because again, I want to lessen the unknown. I want to take away the unknowns for you. You're going to get there at 7:30. Honestly, if you get there at 7:30, you'll probably hang out for a little bit, but that's way better than being late. I've been late to standardized tests and my Old Testament final, which I showed up 20 minutes late, still got it wrong. I was so stressed. And somebody thought I had a panic attack in the middle. They didn't see I walked in late. They just saw me walk up to the teacher like this with my hair. I just ran to my door. My hair was everywhere. I don't even know if I was wearing a shirt. Like it was. I thought I was wearing a shirt. But anyway, so you want to show up early. If you're there early, hang out. That's good. At 8 a.m., you are going to start the exam with multiple choice. You will have 55 stimulus-based multiple choice questions, and you have 55 minutes to answer those questions. Now, if you're in my class, and I think Ms. Jacobson does this too, I imagine she does, you've been answering multiple choice questions fairly quickly. On a 15-question multiple choice quiz, I give you 13 of them. But usually, those questions are not stimulus-based. So just know, the stimulus-based means this. And I know it's awkward because you're like, why is the College Board giving us this? Anyway, so the stimulus means is they're going to be each question is going to have a document related to it. It's going to be either a visual document, it's either going to be an image, a painting, or it's going to be some sort of primary or secondary written source. The multiple choice questions are what's called spiral. Usually the first question after a document is directly related to the document. Does that make sense? As you get further and further, and there's up to about 5 questions per document, and it varies, they get a little bit more vague and harder to answer. It's going to be saying, okay, that should just help you remember exactly what it is that you were learning about during that time period, and then you should just know other basic things. The goal of stimulus-based is to test whether or not you can A, look at a primary source and understand what's going on, and B, remember things from world history. And because of course this would happen to be during a review session, before I run out of battery, let's just make sure Mr. Altadal gets plugged in here. Any questions on that so far? And yes, we are going to get back to the multiple choice that you just did. Does that make sense? Yes, you may, Ms. Engmeyer. Thank you for being patient. I think so. Yeah. Mm-hmm. I think it's alphabetical. Okay. Good question. Multiple choice question, or section, is 55 minutes. Once that 55 minutes is over, you are done. There's no going back to it. There's no, I need more time. You just got to be done with it. Because you got short answers to do. The next section is the short answer questions. Ready? There will be 3 short answer questions. 3 short answer questions. What's that? Short answer questions are those warm-ups that we did in my class that were identify and explain, one cause of da-da-da-da-da, identify and explain. Okay? Wow, that really was a thorough reaction. No, the like 6-sentence explanation. Hold on. Bella, ask a question and then Celeste. Okay. So, that's short answer. Listen. Back. Short answer questions. You are going to have 40 minutes to do 3 short answer questions, which means, on average, you should spend about 10 minutes per question. Each question will have 3 parts to it. They want you to identify and explain in each part. You're going to be given in your answer key a little box. And I don't have time. Your answer paper is going to look like this. And they're just going to have lines that are obviously not going to be as poorly drawn as mine. And it's just going to be 1 page. Does that make sense? And it's going to have the number of the question there. Just give me one page. Shoot for about 3/4 of the way down. Shoot for 3/4 of the way down. That'll probably be about 6 sentences. Kind of like we practice 2 sentences per letter. Cool? Questions on that? Yes, Mr. Boyd.
So the short answers, is that each like 3 groups of 6, or is that 1 group of 6 with 3 subquestions?
Each short answer question will have something like this. Identify and explain. Identify and explain. Identify and explain. These 3 should be 6 sentences.
Okay.
Total. So it's, so 2, 2, and 2. Now, not all sentences are created equally, as we know. You want to, when you're answering the short answer questions, you want to follow 2 rules. And for first semester, I'm not sure that I came up with I didn't really come up with it, but I remember these rules from last time. When you answer a short answer question, you want to pretend 2 things. Number 1, either you can pretend that the reader has no idea what you're talking about. So you have to make sure you clearly explain everything that you're saying. The other rule is that you should pretend that the reader knows everything about what you're talking about, and they're testing you, saying, do you understand everything about what you're talking about? No. But you're going to try. Does that make sense? Here's what, Zoe, Connie's over here. You looking for Connie? Yeah, she's over here. You bringing her the habit? Good, yeah, I didn't want any. So, the last thing on the short answer questions, they're going to force you to answer number 1. They're going to force you to answer number 2. For number 3, they're going to give you a choice. They're going to give you a choice. So number 1 and 2, you have to answer. Number 3, you choose. Pick your poison. They're going to give you 2 options.
Okay, so it's technically 4 options. You have to do the first 2.
Okay. Does that make sense?
No.
40 minutes. So after, what is that? 95 minutes of testing, you're going to take a break. When you take that break, now, I'm going to say this. Of course, we all know what's going to happen. But I'm going to say this because I'm going to cover my own toe. Do not talk about the test during the break. If they hear you or suspect, they might, again, throw away your answers. Does that make sense? What you will do during the break is exactly what Sierra is excited to do, and that is to make sure you eat your snacks. Eat the protein-filled snack, refuel your brain, refuel your body. Don't forget to drink water. Drink some water, because after the 10 minutes, you've got the essay section. And you will have, ready for it? 100 minutes to write 2 essays. Okay. You have 100 minutes to write 2 essays. Here's how it's going to start out. They're going to slap the essay packet on your desk, as well as the pages to write on. When they do so, they are going to now say, the reading period, you may begin reading now. Now, for those of you from first semester, you're like, oh God, that means it's PDQ. For those of you in second semester, you're living in blissful ignorance. You are going to have, they're going to give you 15 minutes. Listen. You're going to have 15 minutes to read through the 7 documents of a document-based question. They're going to, at the end of that 15 minutes, say, you may now begin writing your essay. To which case, you are going to say one of 2 things. Really, I've been writing the whole time. Or, oh my God, I got it right. It doesn't matter. You can start writing before they tell you to start writing. Also, if you're still reading, fine. Just know that you have that 15 minutes is there for you to read. I see the hands. Give me 1 second. With the reading section, or with the essay breakdown, they suggest, it's a suggestion, that you take 60 minutes to both read and write your document-based question. So 1 hour on the DBQ, and 40 minutes on the LEQ. Long essay question, that's the compare and contrast, cause and effect, CCOT that we can do. Does that make sense? 40 minutes. Alex, you had a question. Great to see you, by the way. for the DBQ, and for the LEQ, there'll be 2 options. Does that make sense? Okay. Emma. So the long essay question. So okay, you're gonna have a document-based question. You don't know this yet. We'll start that tomorrow. The document-based question is going to have a set of 7 primary sources, kind of cut into short little boxes. You're going to read through those documents. You're going to answer an essay question based off of what you found. Then, after you're done with that, they're going to have 2 long essay question prompts. Probably something like, analyze one continuity and one change in the. It might say, analyze the extent to which there's something similar in different. That is how that's going to be. They're going to give you 2 prompts. You are choosing one of those 2 prompts to answer. Does that make sense? Now, something to know about those 2 prompts. They are going to be similar prompts. There will be one difference between them, which means this. It might be the same theme, but the prompts might be in either 2 different time periods or 2 different places. It might be the same type, it'll probably be the same type of question, but it might be in, it might be 2 different places. So they're going to toggle between one thing. So if it's the same theme in the same time period, it'll be a different place. If it's the same place, the same time period, it might be a different theme. But they'll be asking questions. Now, what they want to do is those 2 options, they don't want one to be easier than the other. But we all know that one is usually easier than the other. So choose whichever one you know the most about. Do you have a question, Logan?
Is the 15 minutes included in the 60 minutes?
Yes.
So if you're allowed to have 15 minutes to read, then you really only have 45.
Bingo. Yes, but 45 minutes to write one essay, 40 minutes to write the other. Does that make sense? You have 100 minutes total to read and write 2 essays. Yes.
For the LEQ, we get to choose our
Listen. Yes, you get to choose between an option. Between 2 options. Cool? Jack and Andy then left.
Will they tell you when you time like the top?
They will, no, good question. They will not say, I now suggest that you move on to the LEQ. Now, it depends on the person. I've been told that some are just super nice humans, and they're going to say 30 minutes have passed, 40 minutes have passed. You have 20 minutes left. The only one that they really have to tell you is you have 10 minutes remaining. So, I forgot something that you should bring. Not an Apple Watch, but an old school watch. You can, but what if the clock's the clock in my room? So you might not want to do that. Who did I say was next? Andy or Elias? Andy?
I have a question.
Same question? Elias?
I think I was going to ask, is there like a break between the short answer question and the multiple choice?
No. They're just going to say, thank you. Oh. So, I mean, there might be like a break and then passing it out, but no. And I think it's actually the same packet. You just have to stop. They'll probably have like, those cool standardized stop signs. I always like those. For whatever reason, those made me feel really good. Simone?
How is it weighted? Like, was it 50-50?
That's a good question. I would have to really look that up. Essentially, it's 50% writing, 50% multiple choice. It's not perfect, because I don't know if the short answer is the weight is. But yeah, it is a composite score. And by the way, just so you know how the AP scores are graded, what they do is they give that test to college-level students, and then they take the college-level responses, and they kind of break that into where people who would be getting a 5, a 4, a 3, a 2 would be. So it's based off of how they do, and then where you fit into that. Yeah. I don't know your name, but welcome, and
Liam and so do they have like so they just give you 100 minutes to write two essays?
Bingo.
Or is it, okay. So there's no like break, like you have to stop writing one at a certain point? Okay.
Nope. And I will say, Liam, it's a good question. And the reason I say it's a good question because every year I have students say, yeah, I crushed my DBQ and then I wrote my LEQ in 10 minutes. Don't do that. The only way to get better at that is to practice. I'm going to say it now, and it's going to slightly probably regret it. My wife's not going to like me, but I'm going to say it. Don't tell her. It's on video. If you write an essay, and you give it to me, I will grade it. If I get 55 essays, it's 70 essays I have to read every weekend. So anyway, if you want to write an essay, if you're in my class right now, you're already writing this every Friday. But if you want to write an essay for practice, go ahead and do so. I will also show you some resources that you have access to that you can find old questions. Carmen.
So by that you mean like going on the college board, looking at old content and getting students rated? One DBQ, 2 long answer prompts, 1 long answer.
Yes. But I want to make sure everybody understood what you just said. You're writing 2 essays, but there are 3 prompts. 1 DBQ prompt and 2 LEQ prompts. You get to choose between the LEQ. Isai, thanks for your patience.
If we have a dismissal throughout the day, can we go to your class for that dismissal?
Sure. Wait a minute. That is a yes, but you are more than welcome as long as you are not a distraction.
Never.
Wait, Isai, are you going to come in 4th period for any
Third.
reason? Oh, okay. Oh, okay, 3rd period. I thought maybe you'd want to come in 4th for whatever reason. I don't know. No, I have no idea why you'd want to come in 4th for any reason, any person. I mean, any reason. Okay. No, that's on video. Any questions on? I forgot the most important thing. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm pretty confident. I don't know this, but I'm pretty confident. In fact, you should tell your parents this today. You're probably going to be feeling pretty sick after that exam. Yeah, sick enough to probably go home. Yeah, usually, I don't know what it is, it's really weird. But students after they take the AP exam, they're like, oh, my tummy. I don't know. So you might want to, I don't know, have a parent's note ready to go. I would never encourage students to do anything, but it just tends to be a thing. And students, yes. During the test, you gotta finish, so suck it up. If you gotta throw up in a garbage can and come back, do it. So I would, and seriously, don't lie about your health. Okay? Because the honest truth is this, you're gonna be exhausted. If you've not experienced an AP exam, it is mentally exhausting. And from a student whose parents refused to write a note, and said, shut up, go to class. I was of no use to my teachers after the AP exams that I took. So just get a note. Listen, if your parents have any questions, I can't tell them what to do, but I will say, boy, students certainly don't feel good after that test. In fact, usually what they need is in and out.
Wait, can you say that one more time? Yeah, say, wait, can I video straight from
So, any questions? Any questions? I'm not going to tell the doctors. Especially because my wife works with your dad. He's going to ask her. I'm going to get in trouble.
No, respect it.
Okay. Any questions on the day of the AP exam? Just so you know, I'm going to be doing this every time so that you just roll your eyes at me by the end and so that you know exactly what it is that's going to happen. Cool? Okay. So, multiple choice questions. When we're doing multiple choice questions, ooh, I gotta go. When we're doing multiple choice questions, again, every multiple choice question is going to be stimulus based. Again, it means that they're going to have some sort of stimulus. A table, a chart, a visual document, a written document. you need to answer those questions using those documents. But please know this. It's meant to be a stimulus, which means it's just meant for you to say, oh yeah, I remember that. Some of the multiple choice questions, you don't even need the document for. Does that make sense? If you're toggling between something you think the document might be saying, but something that you know you remember as one of those ways of the world in history class, go with the ways of the world. Most of the time, that'll be good. Does that make sense? It's a stimulus, not a reading comprehension test. Cool? Also, another rule is before you even look at the stimulus, please read the questions first. Read through the questions, read through the possible answers, get your mind going, know what you're looking for, and then go back to the stimulus. After looking at the stimulus and you kind of know a little bit more about what you're looking for, the next thing I want you to do is go through the process of elimination. What can it not be? So as we go through numbers 1 through 7, I'm going to ask, what is it not? And when you answer what it is not, I want you to say why it's not the answer. Does that make sense? We're going to take a little bit more time to go through these questions so that you are practicing the thinking skill. Again, I ask that you save side conversations for later. And the reason I say that is because I'm one person, and there's 56 now of you. So actually, 58 of you. So welcome, tennis. So I just asked that you do that so that we can hear. So go ahead. Read number 1 loudly and proudly for us, Margot.
Based on the data, the archaeological evidence preserved at the three sites most directly relevant to scholars studying which of the following.
Okay, Margot, what can it not be? Why can it not be A? Fantastic! Is this a map? No! So then don't worry about it. Has nothing to do with out of Africa. Good! What else can it not be? Why not C? Yeah, what do grains have to do with hierarchies? Well, actually, if somebody has more grains, they will be of higher social rank. But that's not what they're saying. Okay? What else can it not be? Jack? Why not?
Because they're all talking about wild plants that don't need irrigation.
There you go. I mean, a lot of wild plants don't need irrigation. Could it be, listen again. You got the first one. Good. Yes, Jack, good job. So the answer is D, the development of new subsistence strategies during the Neolithic period. Max, what were they testing you on?
Whether or not you knew what was going on.
No, what was what you asked me? Listen.
Oh, how they were growing.
No. What was the question that you asked me?
What subsistence?
Yeah, they are testing, couch. They are testing whether or not you know what the word subsistence means.
I don't.
And if only you had a good history teacher that had academic word wall that included crazy, weird vocabulary terms like subsistence. It's a yes, it is. And if it's not up there, it's not my fault. We'll blame Catherine. So, Oh yeah, actually that was probably when Sophia was writing it. Let's blame Sophia. That was totally Sophia's fault. What does subsistence mean? Say it again, Alexi. So, subsistence agriculture is producing enough to just stay alive. What this is showing in the changing ways that humans are beginning to sort of kind of farm in order to stay alive. Got it? Good. Number 2, Simone, go ahead and read it.
Based on the data and your knowledge of world history, which of the following statements about the settlement in the most
Okay, what can it not be? Well, let Simone go. Why not? Look at Site A. Site A has mostly small grains and grasses, which is just going to be things that you can walk through. There's not really the things that are going to require a little bit more tending to. So it can't be A, because sites B or C have a little bit more of a variation and are going to be getting more and more towards large grains. Good. What else can it not be?
Can you write on the test?
That's a good question. I'm not sure about that. I think so, but I don't know that.
Is it BBQ hippo? Yeah.
Yeah, you should be able to write on it.
Like on
Yeah, you should be able to write on it. Okay, what else can it not be? Faster we get through this, the sooner we can get towards other things. Why can't it be B? Yeah, good! And we don't know anything about it being sophisticated stone tools. I mean, it's possible, but like Jack said, there's also wild plants again. So you don't really need as many sophisticated stone tools for that necessarily. If it was harvesting or killing animals, maybe stone, yeah, but not necessarily. Good. What else can it not be? Why can't it be D? Because how are we supposed to know they've got animals yet? Is it possible? Yeah, sure, it's certainly possible, but we have no idea. So then the answer has to be C. Now, ladies and gentlemen, let's think about this for a second. This document is from what major world event this class started with? Yeah, the end of the Paleolithic, the agricultural revolution. So when we think about agriculture, listen again, side conversations. If you want to have side conversations, just go home and have them. You don't need to have them here. Okay? Agricultural revolution. What's one of the biggest impacts of the agricultural revolution? People just settle down. Just sit. Right? People live the lifestyle that is Netflix. They just want to be sedentary. They don't want to move from their bed and their blankets and their Netflix and their terrible food for you. Or whatever. So either way, so sedentary lifestyle. So even if you looked at this table and you said, wild grains, large grain, small, if you just thought, oh, this is the agricultural revolution. Oh yeah, one of the biggest things is the sedentary lifestyle. Cool? Alexi.
So, I mean, are large grains the one that people eat?
Say it again.
Is large grains the one that fed people?
Yes. But I think all of it fed people. I just think large grains were large grains. Large grains are going to be things that are cultivated. Large grains are going to be things that are cultivated. So when you see more large grains, wheat, barley, etc., those are kind of those foundational things that were planted in places like the Fertile Crescent. Good. Okay, number 3. Excellent. Jenica, read it out for us.
by circa
Stop. What does circa mean? Good. Just making sure.
5000 BCE. The changes illustrated in the 3 charts likely had which of the following environmental impacts on the upper Euphrates River valley?
Great. What can it not be? Why can it not be A? Right? I mean, greenhouse gas emissions, sure. Actually, again, listen. Actually, I would say the thing that has more to do with greenhouse emissions would be the domestication of animals, because animals fart, and there you go. That's actually true, isn't it? Isn't that what Gettler says? One of the biggest carbon emissions are cattle farms or whatever, because the cows are farting all the time. Flippin' Central Valley. Okay, good. What else? What else we got? Okay, why can't it be D? listen. Say it again.
Oh, yeah, I'm changing. I think it got worse because there are more people living.
Yeah, remember Jared Diamond? Jared Diamond's article that one of the worst mistakes ever in human history was farming. Why? Because humans got sick and died. Why? Well, animals were not only farting, causing animal emissions, but they were also, well, actually, why in this case is because humans relied on food and animal labor as well, and so part of that is just diseases from being sedentary, living in larger cities. When people are sedentary, not moving, they're interacting more disease that is spread. Cool? Good. So it can't be less prevalent diseases. So what else can it be? Yeah. Why can't it be C? Ava, say it. Yeah, thank you. The Euphrates River Valley is in Southwest Asia, not Africa. How many of them did not know that? Okay, good. Number 3, good. So now you got 4 through 7. So number 4, read it out for us, Angie. Shh, listen. We're just going to do a couple more.
Emperor Ashoka speaks thus. 12 years after my coronation.
Whoa. Don't read the actual document. Read question number 4. But that's awesome that you wanted to be Ashoka that much.
Based on unit 1, the Mauryan Empire existed, which are the following characteristics common to empires in periods 600 BC to 600.
Ladies and gentlemen, do you even need the document for this question? Nope.
It's really short, so like.
What's the question asking? What did emperors do? So, what do we got? What can it not be? Why can't it be B? Okay, why can't it be D? Yeah, and it really is just, it doesn't talk about that in the document. Good. Why also can't it be B? Say it again, Alexi. It doesn't really talk about trade and merchant-friendly policies. Good. What else can it be? Yeah, why not? It doesn't talk about that, and honestly, we don't really know. Okay? And then, good, so that leaves what? A. Ladies and gentlemen, let's think about this question. Which of the following was common to all, mostly? And except for Harappa and the Indus River Valley, what do we know is one of the key definitions of being in a civilized society? You have a single all-powerful, divinely ordained ruler that is going to rule where? In a central location, so centralization. And urbanization, yeah, that's true. But they're also going to make sure that they work through bureaucracies, right? That's one of those ways of the world that you got to remember. You got to remember bureaucracies. You got to remember centralized authority. And other than Indus River Valley civilization, all other civilizations were centralized to a certain degree. Does that make sense? Good. Elias, read number 5.
Based on Unit 2, Ashoka's policies toward practitioners of other religions had which of the following purposes?
Yeah, which can it not be?
It can't be A because I don't think Ashoka incorporated Greek tradition.
Nice! Yeah, he doesn't really. What does he not do, though? Yeah, wow, what word do we use all the time? Syncretism, I win. Because you need to know what a syncretic tradition means. And Ashoka is not going to create a syncretic tradition. That's just not something that he did, right? So it can't be that one. What else do we know it's not? Why can't it be B? Yeah! Does he create a legal code? Yes. Does it insult other religions? No. He does not insult. He's actually fairly nice to other religions. In fact, I think it says that it's illegal to insult. Yeah, it says it's illegal to insult. Yes, so don't insult them. The legal code is not, isn't that what it says there? Where are we at here? Yeah, no, I know. Yeah, okay. So Alexi, it says don't do it, but is there a specific punishment? I think that's what they're saying there. I agree, but what's a better answer to number 5? Yeah, the answer number 5 is C, right? Because, ladies and gentlemen, our first civilizations and really empires, what do empires do?
Expand.
And when they expand,
Assimilate.
and when they conquer, they incorporate diverse groups of people into their empires. That's what empires do. We also know that Ashoka is dealing with what particularly? He's ruling over a majority what population? Hindu, but he also has unparalleled cultural diversity. But during Ashoka's time, what religion becomes very popular? And in fact, Ashoka himself converts to it. So it's diverse. He wants to incorporate diverse groups. Good. For the sake of time, I'll just give you the answer to number 7. Number 7 was D. Yep. Number 7 was D. That's one of those questions that you just needed to know. Oh, did we not do 6? 6 is A. Okay. D. All right. All right, ladies and gentlemen. So here we go. Now it's going to start our major investigation into the pre-classical and classical era. I'm going to go briefly through all of the major trends and themes that happened during these two time periods. Now, the pre-classical and classical eras make up about 15% of the AP exam. The rest of the time periods are 20% each. So you're going to have, for the pre-classical, for the classical, maybe 10 multiple choice questions max. And if there's no multiple choice questions on the classical era on the test, that's probably what the essay is going to be about. But for the most part, they're going to start favoring the time periods after. But it's important to make sure you understand both the pre-classical and the classical, because this is really setting the foundation for the course. Because we know, with the pre-classical era, what's the major theme of that time period? Agriculture is the event, but what is the theme? What does it mean to be, civilized? Because with civilization, or with agriculture, comes civilization. And we know that by 10,000 BCE, agricultural revolution had already developed in pockets around the world. By 3500 BCE, you see the development of larger civilized societies. And we're going to talk about what that means in just a second. By 600 BCE, you then see the beginning of large-scale empires. And as we emerge into the classical empire, we're going to be looking at classic empires that are going to set the cultural, political, social, and economic foundations for each of the regions in which they develop. So when you are Mao Zedong, it's what brings us together. When we get to when you get to Mao, he's going to connect himself back to the classical emperor of Qin Shi Huangdi. Because he thinks, like Qin, that he is unifying China and taking China into a new era of greatness. When you have Europeans and they say, dude, that's classic. They are talking about the empires of Greece and Rome, which was Europe's heyday until the modern era. But that's neither here nor there. So we want to look at this time period and really how the developments in this time period set the foundation for time periods to come. So while it's only 15%, which is still actually a fairly large percentage of your grade, but while it's only 15%, it is still important. So let's just go with our first time period, and that is the transition from Paleolithic to Neolithic. So first things first, what does it mean to be #paleo? Paleolithic, what does that mean? I don't know, you tell me. What? Yeah, it's actually before writing systems, really. So Paleolithic is considered what we consider the Stone Age, before agriculture. It's important for you to understand something. The majority of human history has been during the Paleolithic era. Human history is largely on a timeline that looks something like this. Here's agriculture. And then, actually, let's do this. Here's industry. Does that make sense? So for majority of human history, humans lived without agriculture. So what was life like? Well, the first things first is this course does technically start with the development of the hominid species, or the human species, the designation of Homo. Homo sapiens sapien, isn't that what it is? Not Homo sapien, Homo sapien, yeah. Homo sapiens sapien. So what is, or I say Homo sapien, I think it's the other way around. Yeah, it's definitely the other way around. I don't know why I did. But anyway, what does it mean to be human? And while we definitely disagree with what that actually means, and scientists who are discovering fossil records, not necessarily each year, but even more currently, are still debating exactly what it means to be a human. But in general, there's a few designations. Number one, you walk upright on two legs. For most of you, that is what you spend some of your day doing. Well, you have you then have the use of opposable thumbs, right? Whee! And that you use tools in order to solve everyday problems. But don't get too cocky, because so do birds. And so do crows particularly, and I hate birds, and so we shouldn't get too cocky. For the majority of human existence, terrifying. Oh, Angie. For the majority of human existence, humans were hunters and gatherers, which means that they lived a very nomadic life, largely living off of whatever it was that they could find and whatever it was that they could hunt. Those migratory patterns, of course, were usually following larger animals and herds so that they continuously could hunt. Human societies were very small. Paleo lifestyle was like going on a really long backpacking trip for your entire life with just your immediate and maybe a little bit of your extended family. I mean, we're talking 20 people max. For some of you, that sounds like paradise. For a lot of you, it sounds like you'd rather not. And so that's just to remember. And those are what's called kinship-based society. Societies based off of your kin or your family. Those societies were largely egalitarian in nature. Now, why? Why egalitarian? First of all, let's step back off the dolphin. What does egalitarian mean? Equal. Means equal. Now, they're not totally equal, but for the most part, they are. Why would that be? What creates inequality? Possession, stuff, hydroflask, Patagonia. Well, what else do we have? You say, what's the new trendy thing? Ripped jeans, right? Exactly. You need something to show your status, but because you. I think that was a crow. You need something to show your status, but if you are constantly moving around, you're not staying in one place, you don't want to have to carry all that stuff on your back. So Paleolithic societies just did not accumulate as many goods as what will happen in the agricultural revolution. And so for that nature, it's mostly egalitarian. Now, totally egalitarian? No, of course not. There were sometimes age sets. There was the idea of deferring to the older ones in your groups. I'm sure parents had some say over what the children were doing, but for the most part, egalitarian. Something I do want to say is many people think about the Paleolithic lifestyle as not only #healthy, but also #peaceful. But that's not necessarily the case. And there are now fossil records that show that Paleolithic people did fight each other, and sometimes in brutal fashion. There's some bones that were found somewhere in Turkey, somewhere in Southwest Asia that show individuals with their heads bashed in and they were tied together and their bones were tied up, which shows ritual massacre. So Paleolithic people were not all peaceful, but for the most part, because there's just less humans to fight, there's less conflict. Makes sense? So mostly peaceful. It is important to understand that they use fire for protection. Paleolithic people did not really impact their environment that much. They did use fire, though, and that is an important example that sometimes makes its way onto the AP exam. The other thing that they did is they hunted large mammals to extinction. R.I.P. the woolly rhinoceros. I wish that was still around. That thing was so cute, despite its massive, huge lips. And then, of course, much to the happiness of some of you, we are all African by descent. Humankind developed in human beings developed as a species in Africa. And something that you should spend at least some time studying are the different migrations out of Africa. You know the main ones as people walk by foot and go into Europe and Asia and know that they cross over the land bridge or maybe sail along the land bridge. We're not sure because they went really fast, and I don't think they were running. So they eventually get across the land bridge. That land bridge melts, and then the people in the America are now going to develop differently. Don't forget that there are some ones that are slightly different. For example, Moana. As Moana goes out into the Pacific Islands, it's much later. So it is the Polynesians that are actually going to bring agriculture with them as they migrate into those islands, which is one of the reasons why Moana develops in a chiefdom, as she is. What's her song? Let It Go. Okay. And then of course, if you want to be paleo, you can look like this guy, just eating a piece of raw meat out of a brown bag. By the way, is anybody paleo in here? That means you only eat things that are not processed. Meat and plants. Okay. It's very trendy. Anyway, so ladies and gentlemen, this class really starts with, back. I know, I'm off Moana, that's like sacred ground. Angie, you're welcome. Okay, so, ladies and gentlemen, this class really starts with the Neolithic Revolution. Neolithic is another way of saying agriculture. You gotta know that. If they say Neolithic, they're talking about agriculture. And when we look at the causes of the agricultural revolution, the first is actually an environmental, something that humans had no control over. And that's the end of the last ice age. As the ice began to retreat and new grasses began to spawn where they were not before, humans began to have a more in-depth knowledge of their surroundings and just simply more options. And also, it's hard to farm in ice, which is why the Norwegians were raiders and not as really good. Anyway, you guys all know about Norwegian history. So number two, the extinction of large mammals. Without the woolly rhinoceros and other woolly creatures, the people faced a food crisis and needed to find another source of food to eat. And then, of course, let's not forget, this is a revolution over time. This is not like, hey, we can farm now. This is something that happens over thousands of years. And I mean, it takes a long time for humans just to invent the digging stick. Just a stick that grow. So it takes a long time to do that. And it's also thought, too, that we'll get to that. But it is a revolution over time. a very important thing to understand about agriculture is it develops separately and independently. That's an important phrase to know, which means in the Fertile Crescent, which is where some of the first instances of agriculture occur, which is Southwest Asia, modern-day Iraq, which is one of the quiz questions that everybody wants to know, modern-day Iraq, and in places like Africa, especially Eastern Africa, in places like North America, in Central America, in China, places where agriculture is developing around the same time without any contact, which is pretty incredible, which shows why there must be some sort of common thing that causes it like that. What's really important is understanding the effects of agriculture, because humanity and society as we know it would not exist without farming. So what is it that farming does? What happens? Well, the first is, like we talked about, and the most important, people become sedentary. And as people become sedentary, because now they can farm and produce a steady amount of food, they don't have to follow animals. In fact, they're going to domesticate animals, and they're going to learn how to intensify their agricultural practices, which means they're going to have surplus of goods. That surplus of goods is going to turn into social hierarchies, because some people have the food and other people don't. And if you don't have the food, you now have to, in some way, shape, or form, pay for that food in order to get it. You might pay using some sort of currency, but you're probably going to use it by being a laborer, somebody who works. So you have the definition of stratified social hierarchies. Disease is another thing that Jared Diamond likes to talk about. Disease, things like just the fact that people are shorter because of poorer nutrition. In fact, I'm sorry if you are Greek, because you are shorter than your Paleolithic ancestors. I'm sorry. Any Greeks? Sorry, Brian. If you were Paleo, you'd be 6 foot, man. Are you already 6 foot? How tall are you? You're 5'8"? I didn't know I was taller than you. Okay, I for sure thought you were taller than me. You must just carry yourself well. I don't slouch. Good, so disease. Conflict arises. Hey, you got food, I don't, I'm going to kill you. That is literally how conflict is going to start. You're going to see, again, settled societies. We know this. Anytime there is an increase in food supply, you know full well there's going to be an increase in population. The reason why population doesn't grow is because if you don't have enough food, somebody's going to starve. So you know that if there's an increase in food, there's always an increased population, and that is absolutely what's going to happen. Specialization of labor. Some people are going to do certain jobs. That, of course, is going to be your nobility that are just going to organize things. Yeah, do that. They're going to organize things, but then there's going to be people who are farming specific things. There's going to be people who become artisans, crafts workers, builders, carpenters, things like that. People are going to specialize. Now, specialization in the early times, it looks a lot different because people can do a lot of different things. You are responsible for, yes, tending your fields, but also building your house, making your own tools, making your own clothes. You are doing a lot of those things, but increasingly we see specialization. And then last but certainly not least, sorry ladies, patriarchy. And when we look at things like the hashtag #MeToo movement, why does this seem like something that is so hard to change? Don't get discouraged. Continue to fight for it, but know that you're fighting against 12,000 years of history. But the good news is, it started for no reason. Because largely when we look at the majority of human history, and especially in Paleolithic time, women were more important than men. Women were responsible for 70% of the diet. Men, a measly 30%. If only we went back to the ancient San tradition of the mocking of the meat. I miss that. I miss the mocking of the meat. Oh yeah, good catch. It smells bad. I bet you didn't even hit it on the first try. Every time the hunter did something good, they'd make fun of him for 30 minutes. They didn't know what time was, so I don't know how long it took, but I imagine it was 30 minutes. You look funny. It'd be so great if every time every time Alexi did really well on one of his exams, we just sat him in the middle of the class and we just say, I can't think of any insult for you. There's just literally nothing I can insult. You're a nice guy, you're athletic, you're intelligent. I'd be the worst son ever. Anyway, we do see patriarchy as one of those things as, again, and why patriarchy at this time? Well, again, and Miss Engmeyer, don't hit me, please. Please, Angie, Hannah, don't hit me.
In general, Claire, don't tag me. In general, men are stronger than women. In general, which means as labor and farm labor becomes more intensive, men take that over. And then as conflict arises and men defend the food, men start to do their little touchdown dance and like, yeah, right? They do the Donahoe, right? Right? And when they do that dance, they think that they are worth something, and therefore women's role then gets relegated. So you do see the development of patriarchy because of those things. Lastly, because I do a terrible job of teaching this in my class, another thing you want to know as an impact of agriculture is metallurgy. The smelting, which is one of my favorite words, of different minerals to create stronger, probably going to say this wrong, don't tell Mr. Cervantes, metal alloys. Is that right? Good, yes, the Greek said I was good. So metal alloys. Here are your dates. Are you ready? 3500 BCE is known as the beginning of the Bronze Age. 3500 BCE. I also want you to know that 3500 BCE is the development of our first civilizations. That is not a coincidence. The civilization that developed bronze, which I believe is copper and tin, copper and tin, is going to then have, whoever has the most modern military technology is going to win. You have a sword that is bronze, that's going to beat the stone tool. Make sense? Then, the Iron Age, 1,000. I think it's 1,000 or 1,500, that's what it is. It's 3,500 and then it's 1,500 is the Iron Age. And iron is harder than bronze, so when you hit each other's swords, the iron sword is going to win. So those are just there as the Bronze Age and Iron Age. And I got to go a little bit faster. So ladies and gentlemen, we see here now by 3500 BCE. Now remember that time, because that's a lot of time right there. We just went from 10,000 to 3,500. That's a lot of thousands of years. Yeah, that is a lot of years that is developing. By 3500 BCE, again, around the world, wherever there was agriculture and rivers and fertile, right, you are going to see the first civilizations developing. It is agriculture that over time is going to develop what is known as civilized. And of course, we know that we have our first major civilizations. I'm not going to go through all of them. We do not have time. But it is important that you just know who they are. Your first civilizations in China are actually the mythical civilization of the Xia, Xia. The first one that we know happened was the Shang dynasty. After the Shang dynasty falls, you then have the Zhou dynasty. And I'm sorry, Eddie, I'm butchering this. You have no idea how happy that made me. You have the Shang and the Zhou dynasties, which are the first Chinese dynasties. These are the ones that are going to create the Alexei and Brian Mandate of Heaven. Of course, you then have in northern Africa, the civilization that develops is going to be Egypt. Now, most people remember Egypt. As that. You then have Mesopotamia and Southwest Asia. That is actually going to be a mixture of a lot of different civilizations that are just considered the Mesopotamians. But that includes the original, which are the Sumerians, the OGs, the Sumerians, which then get conquered by the Babylonians, which then get conquered by the Assyrians, which then get conquered by the Hittites, which then get conquered by the Neo-Babylonians, which then will get conquered... What? Okay. Which will then get conquered by the Persians, or the Medes and the Persians. Anyway, so that's Mesopotamia. In India, you have Harappa and Mohenjo-Daro, which is the Indus River Valley civilization. And the Americas, you have the Olmec and the Chaban. Let's also not forget there are a few other civilizations, typically nomadic in nature. In Africa, the most important there are going to be the Bantu. Do you have something to say?
What's the other one in the Americas? Olmec and what?
Chaban?
Wait, that's Norte Chico.
No, Norte Chico.
Yeah.
That's wrong. I should change that. Yeah, definitely. Imagine extra credit. Because the Chaban cult is later. That's classical. Anyway, so you have the Bantu in Africa, which are going to be largely responsible for spreading agriculture slowly, family by family. In Central Asia, you have the pastoral nomadic groups. Names are kind of hard, but it's going to be those Turkish-speaking Indo-European peoples. It's going to be peoples like the Xiongnu and others. They're not necessarily formalized, but you do have pastoral societies in Central Asia. And then let's not forget the Hebrew peoples in Southwest Asia, modern-day Israel, who are a nomadic society that play a role in Egyptian history and also within Southwest Asia. So what does it mean to be civilized? First and foremost, you rely heavily on agriculture. Your entire civilization is based off of maintaining agricultural surplus that can feed a large amount of people. This means that you are going to have specific planning. What develops are large cities. Cities that are going to house not just government systems, but also those who are searching for work. Those cities and those kings who are in control of those cities are going to be responsible for maintaining the agriculture around the city, to make sure everybody has enough food. With cities comes specific urban planning. Nobody does it better than the Babylonians or the Mesopotamians, who build massive giant walls so wide you could take a 4-horse chariot and do a U-turn. Massive, massive walled cities that also are going to have hanging gardens like in Babylon. That's pretty cool. We're going to get to monumental architecture in just a second. You're really going to see minimal expansion at this point. Most societies, they will expand. Egypt will expand. Mesopotamia will expand somewhat. But it's not as expansive nearly as our major empires will be later on in the classical era. You continue to have the development of metallurgy, which we've already talked about, and military technology, most notably chariot technology. Remember, it's the Hyksos and the Hittites too, who are going to invade Egypt using chariot-level technology, which is then going to reinvigorate the new Egyptian empire. And by the time of the classical era, chariot technology had made its way all the way over to China. And so chariot technology is just one of those examples. Also, composite bows and other military innovations. Monumental architecture. You know this. Those are the giant mountains in which kings said, "Look how divine I am! Like a god, I built a mountain!" Oh, I had my slaves do it. But still, I organized a mountain. So that's why you have ziggurats in ancient Mesopotamia. That's why you have the pyramids in Egypt. That's why you have the giant temples or the giant Olmec heads. Those are my favorite, the Olmec heads. Just a big head. Somebody should do that one day for me. Just a giant Optidal head right in the middle of the senior lawn, letting the seniors know that their existence is futile. Yes.
Okay.
Oh, okay. Hannah's on it. Good. You're going to have, and very important. I'm going to go ahead and say it. All of our early civilizations are going to develop writing systems. They will vary. Some will use actual alphabets. Others are going to use just symbols or hieroglyphs. It's important to know that writing develops as a system of accounting. Again, it's the government's job to make sure everybody is fed, which means it's their job to make sure that there's enough food. They have to count it, they have to record it. That's going to be done in a variety of different ways. With writing and with organization is going to become the development of codified or written laws. Laws that are going to be written down. The most famous, of course, is the Code of Hammurabi. These law codes are going to A, apply to everybody, and they are B, going to also organize society well, which is why in Hammurabi's code you see for equals, if Elias punches Hannah, good luck. First of all, if Elias punches Hannah, according to that law, can punch him right back. No problem. That's lex talionis. That's an eye for an eye. He hits her in the eye, she hits him in the eye, everybody's good. But if Elias has the chutzpah and gumption to hit me, well, then he gets thrown in the river and I'll see if he dies. And that would be execution. If I hit Elias, bad. Hey, fine.
Wait. What character are you? Wait, I'm confused. Oh, okay, so you're higher, I'm just a girl, and then...
Actually, technically, if we're going by the Code of Hammurabi, patriarchy is well, actually, Hammurabi's code is fairly decent for women. There are still property laws, but for the most part, women Sorry. Except for the repercussion that you would give to him. Don't do it, Linus. I just don't suggest it. So anyway, so that is codified law. Something that's important to know that you do have artistic developments during this time, particularly jewelry, clothing, and other murals on walls. All art is going to be sponsored by elites. Poor people are just worrying about whether or not the crops are going to grow and if they're going to make it through. They're not sponsoring the art, but I'd love to draw. No! It's going to be the elites that are going to do that because they actually have the money and the time. We do see examples of regional and trans-regional or intra- and inter-regional trade, particularly through Mesopotamia and Egypt. But also don't forget, and if you were Miss Jacobson's class, you are intelligent because you read that Southernization article. We realize all good things that the people in Western society think they came up with came from India. So, that would be the Southern Hemisphere. Of course, we have stratified social hierarchies. We've talked about that in different ways, and that was seen in the different buildings that they had, sizes of homes, and other things. And last but not least, yeah, sorry, ladies, patriarchy. You're not a civilized society unless there's patriarchy, which brings us back to the wonderful, I forgot. Elite sponsoring the arts, like epic literature, like the Epic of Gilgamesh. And we know with the Epic of Gilgamesh, what makes a civilized person? Well, number one, you sleep with a prostitute, you drink beer, you eat bread, you wear clothing, you bathe, and you live in a city. That's civilization for you! I don't get it. So let's go to the classical era. So that's classic. Because as we see the fall of our first civilizations, they are going to be replaced by new, larger, expansive, classical civilizations. Civilizations that for each of our different regions around the world are going to set the foundations to come. First civilizations, well, they just teach us how to be civilized. Classical civilizations are going to expand and incorporate larger territories and create the uniqueness of each region around the world. And that's from 600 BCE to 600 CE. In East Asia, that's the Qin, which is short-lived, really just through Qin Shi Huangdi's life and death, maybe. Maybe he's still alive, drinking mercury from eternal fountains, because that's how, anyway. And then you have the Han Dynasty, which is largely the classical empire of China, which is why those later in Chinese history will call themselves black-haired sons of Han. Han Dynasty. In South Asia, which is India, it's the Mauryan and the Gupta empires. The founders are not to be confused because the founder of the Mauryan Empire is Chandragupta Maurya, and the founder of the Gupta is Chandra Gupta. Don't confuse them. Min's like, what? In Europe, you have Greece and you have Rome as well, which you all already know. In Southwest Asia, it's the Persians that are going to be the really cool. And by the way, you're not cool in Europe unless you fought the Persians. In fact, that actually holds true today, even. Weird. Anyway, so in the Americas, you also have the Maya, the Teotihuacan, the Moche, and I guess I probably should have put the Chavans there as well. Good. Other civilizations, the Xiongnu, and in Europe, don't forget those barbarians. Why are they barbarians? Well, because they don't speak Greek. If you spoke Greek, you wouldn't sound like you're saying bar, which is why they're called barbarians. Good.
Whoa.
You know this is all on video, right? The development of classic civilization. And I say it's those good old days that help to set the basic foundations. So when you look at, it sounds kind of silly, but even if you look at regional architectural styles, that's developed during the classical era, where you say, oh wow, yeah, that's definitely Persian. Or look at Washington, D.C. That's modeling Greek-style architecture because that was the good old days of democracy, right? It's that kind of stuff. You go around Europe, and it's largely classical style or Roman-style architecture with regional variations. Okay, good. Here we go. Okay, so ladies and gentlemen, with the building of empires. How are these empires structured? What are they doing? How are they organized? Well, the first is through centralized governments. You are going to have single, all-powerful, divinely ordained rulers who are going to start out ruling over small city-states and through violent military expansion
are going to brutally conquer their way across vast territories and incorporate diverse groups of people into their empire at one way or another. In order to maintain their authority over large regions, they're going to use the development of bureaucracies. Now, you have some bureaucracies in our first civs as well. Of course, as empires grow, so do their bureaucracies. And we see examples of that, of course, in the Roman Empire, as you see Roman governors and consuls and different posts around the empire. In the Persian Empire, it's probably the most famous because we love Persian bureaucratic techniques, which means you appoint local officials as governors who are loyal to you as the emperor. You call those local officials satraps! And then you make sure that those satraps are going to listen to you by having eyes and ears all over the empire. You have an imperial network of spies that will constantly tell you whether or not your satraps are listening to you and doing your bidding. And if they don't, you kill them and replace them. Yeah. Satraps? Persia.
Like, are satraps the same person as the spies, or are they?
No, satraps are different. Satraps are the local governors, and then spy. By the way, I think that was another Jeopardy question the other day too, where I was like, satrap! My wife was like, yeah, there you go. Oh, it was on, that's what it was. It was on Bryn's test, and she's like, satrap. Okay.
Wait, what were the spies called?
Spies. I don't know. Eyes and ears. Eyes and ears. Eyes and ears of the king. Eyes and ears of the king. They are also going to borrow from first civilizations and develop codified systems of law. You already read Ashoka, because when you think Ashoka, you always think rock and pillar edict, because Ashoka is going to, all around his empire, write his laws and decrees on these large pillars. They are going to serve both a imperial, a bureaucratic purpose, and also a religious one, because these lions point and face to the direction of a Buddhist monastery or holy site. So it's supposed to, A, help you follow the law, and B, get a little Buddha, which is good. You are then going to say the development of large cities. Now, especially capital cities, because this is where empires have the ooh and ah factor. Because why does everybody want to be Roman? Because when you are conquered, as long as you're wealthy, you are given everything that is #cool that is Roman. They take your little city and they reorganize it to be a little mini Rome. They're going to give you gridded streets, public bathhouses, fountains, holy aqueducts, water. They're going to have a little mini Colosseum so you can watch people get eaten by tigers so you can, for one day, just one day, forget about how miserable your measly life is, while other people suffer and get crucified. And so the idea is you then get connected to Rome via roads. You get everything that's #cool to be Roman. All of you love the wonderful graphic novel that you're reading right now, Persepolis, because Persepolis was the Persian capital. And in order to meet the king, one had to go up the stairs of Persepolis, which showed you via mural the social hierarchies as it gets higher and higher until you reach the divine king. Persepolis is a city, but in your case, it's the name of a girl who goes through a lot of coming-of-age stories amidst the Iranian Revolution. Oh, it's not Persepolis? Well, that makes no sense to me. Okay. Of course, you have the development of public works. Now, I've mentioned some of those things. Mostly, you want to know that there are roads that are developed. Now, roads are, of course, wonderful. And if Sage were here, she would say, roads help to connect people at such a wonderful level. But Nikki's here. And Nikki, you know why roads are built. Why are roads built, Nikki? Very good, Nikki. Don't say it so calmly and kindly. It's so that you can get your army there faster and destroy anybody who tries to challenge you. Watch out for her. I tell you, she will be our Sator one day. Okay, and then of course, as Nikki knows, you also have the use of large armies that are going to incorporate conquered peoples. Remember, one of the ways one of the major things that empires have to do is they have to figure out, how do I rule over diverse groups of people? And so they're going to use these sort of strategies in order to do so.
With the classical empires, you also have the fall of empires. Sad. And it's actually interesting to see why empires fall. They have very similar reasons. Number one, many times they just overextend. They run out of resources. Number two, sometimes as empires expand, their nobility, or those who are wealthy, are gaining too much power. And if you give too much to the elites, you're also going to destroy the environment. So you have things like disease, you have things like famine, you have things like floods, and of course, as Brian and Alexi know, if you have floods and environmental disaster, you then lose your Chipotle dinner on Fridays, you lose your mandate of heaven, and then therefore you have to regain it again next Friday as you go to Chipotle together. And then you also, of course, have the wonderful nomadic invasions. The examples of that is the Romans and the barbarians. The Gupta are invaded by the White Huns, not to be confused with Mulan, different Huns. The White Huns, and then the Han Dynasty and the Xiongnu, and also the Huns and others. Good.
Wait.
No, you know this. We don't have time. We literally don't have time. We don't have time.
You still open up.
It's okay. You're going to watch the video anyway.
The Josh Reed.
Okay, so ladies and gentlemen, you also have, as part of this too, the codification of universal religions. Religions that are going to now appeal and set the cultural foundations for each of the different regions. These are going to be those classic religions that still play a major role in each place and largely around the world today. And here's just a list of all of the ones that you want to make sure that you understand. You have the beginnings of monotheism in Southwest Asia with one of my favorites, Zoroastrianism. As Zoroaster, as if you're Greek, Brian, or if you are Persian, you call him Zarathustra. And Zarathustra or Zoroaster it starts the first monotheistic religion, worshiping the god Ahura Mazda, protege, who is created the world in a benevolent way and given all things that are good. Much to his chagrin, there is another semi-divine being called Angra Mainyu, who is constantly trying to corrupt that is good. It's a dualistic religion. There's a battle between good and evil, and one day there will be a savior figure that will come and save the human race. All you have to do is good thoughts, good words, good deeds, which is, by the way, really good advice. You have good thoughts, well, then you'll say good words. If you say good words, well, shoot, you'll actually do things that are good, which is why in Parsi, which is modern-day Zoroastrianism, in Parsi, when you go through your initiation ritual into the religion, you have 3 cords around your neck, and you are constantly tying those cords, and those cords represent good thoughts, good words, good deeds. Pretty cool. Pretty cool. Just me? All right. In addition, by the way, just so you also know, in Mesopotamia and around the same time, it depends on kind of which historians you're going to be reading, is the development of another monotheistic religion, which is Judaism. Some historians say that Zoroastrianism influenced Judaism. It depends on when you think Judaism developed. But around the same time, you also have another monotheistic religion in Judaism, which expresses the story and history of the Hebrew people and their special relationship to this God. And we're not going to get to the Holy Covenant, which all of you do when you make an agreement on Snapchat. You cut animals in half, dig a trench, let the blood flow, and then light a fire and kind of go through anyway. You then have, the oldest of religions is going to be, Zoroastrianism, but also Hinduism, particularly the Vedic religion. And Hinduism is going to develop and incorporate a variety of different local traditions in India, and all codify them into the Vedas and the Upanishads. Anybody Sega Genesis players? No, just old off the doll. Sega. Nope, still don't get it. That one's never going to work, but I'm still going to say it anyway, just like I continue to say quotes from the original 1989 Ninja Turtles movie, even though none of you ever know it. Wise men say forgiveness is divine, but never pay full price for late pizza. Okay, so, good. You then have by the way, Hinduism is an extremely unique religion in that it has a pantheon of gods. Why so many gods? Well, because what India always struggles with is unparalleled cultural diversity.
as a religion, India is able to absorb foreign traditions into its own religion. And you see that as after Buddhism develops, they consider Buddhism just another reincarnation of one of their deities. You have Christianity, which is going to develop out of Judaism. That happens in Europe and Southwest Asia. Let's not forget Jesus was Southwest Asian, not Norwegian. Many people get that mixed up. Maybe just the Lutherans. But you have Buddhism in South Asia, which is going to challenge those hierarchies as the Buddha looks at Hinduism and says, "Why so much suffering?" And then he develops his own eightfold path, which you can then follow and go to Pizza Guru and become enlightened in order to do that. Confucianism is going to legalism is going to start the foundation in East Asia, but around the same time, in that period of warring states, you see Confucius beginning to teach a way of ordering society. How do you order society? Well, just like some of you wish that some people would figure out, you figure out right relationships. How do you discuss things with your superiors and your inferiors? And it's the idea of filial piety. That who is superior should always look out for those who are beneath you. But those who are beneath you should just shut up and listen to you, which is always fun to say. Good. Taoism is also around in East Asia, which all of you understand, and especially right now. Because all of you just want to go out of here and just disappear on your water buffalo and just be, man. Just be. Because you look at this Confucian society that we've done that forces students to study for really, really challenging tests that decide their entire fate, and you say, boy, that's lousy! Because the founder of Taoism is lousy, and come on, Isai, you got to remember that one. And then lastly, of course, is the development of Greek rationalism, the use of logic and reason in order to understand the earth, even if you're Aristotle and you don't understand what a dolphin looks like. In general, these religions do this. They provide some sort of salvation, be it nirvana in Buddhism or the early 90s grunge music, or it be moksha in Hinduism, or heaven in Christianity. It provides some sort of hope. Your life may be miserable now, but don't worry. If you die, everything will be okay, as long as you do the right thing and listen to us. They're all codified into written texts. You have the Upanishads, the Vedas, the Bhagavad Gita. In Hinduism, you have the Bible in Christianity, the Torah in Judaism, the Avestas in Zoroastrianism, the Analects in Confucianism, there we go. And I forget the Taoist text, but the Tao Te Ching. Tao Te Ching! Don't forget the Taoist text, there you go. They are going to be used by governments to maintain authority. They will become state-sponsored. Constantine does it for Christianity. Ashoka does it with Buddhism. The Persians adopt, especially the early Persians, adopt Zoroastrianism as their official religion. They're all going to be used to maintain authority. It's also going to help create morality within those codified laws. They're going to spread outward, mainly because of trade routes, especially as interregional trade continues, especially as the Silk Roads are developed at this time, and also through missionaries. Not all religions have missionaries, right? Zoroastrianism, not a missionary religion. Judaism, not a missionary religion. Hinduism, not a missionary religion. But Buddhism, Christianity, I think that's it. Confucianism, not really, no. Taoism, Laozi is on his water buffalo, so maybe he is, but probably not. Good. They also provide social stratification, and for the most part, these religions are going to support social hierarchies, and they're going to solidify patriarchy. Sometimes they will challenge it. Christianity challenges it, Buddhism challenges it, Taoism challenges it. But for the most part, you see social stratification. There is some opportunity for the poor and for women who want to join in monasteries, because even Buddha's got to let his stepmom into his religion. He doesn't want to, but he does it anyway. And then, of course, it influences art and architecture all over the place, which is wonderful and beautiful, and we don't have time to discuss that.
Yeah, we can talk about that more later next time. So this is probably the last one that we'll go through, and then we'll go over what the essay rubric looks like. So ladies and gentlemen, you also have the development of classic social hierarchies. How are human societies organized in each region? And again, this is also a part of figuring out how do we deal with a diverse population. We can find political strategies to govern them. We can find religions to create this common cultural identity. And we can also develop this sort of social system that helps people fit into whatever place they are in. Does that make sense? This is the best I've ever explained that. I'm getting better. Progress, enlightenment. Good. In South Asia, you have the development of the caste system, something that is largely based off of Hindu ideology, and again, explains how do these diverse groups fit in, particularly as you have the Indo-European Aryans that are conquering from the northwestern part of India. Where do they fit in when they conquer? Oh, perfect. We'll just insert you into the conquering group. They'll have the Brahmin priests on top. Then you are the conquerors. You'll govern. And then all of those Indians that you've conquered can be the Vaisas, Sudras, and I'm missing one. Oh, Untouchables. Yeah, good. I was right. And then the Untouchables. So that's the caste system. Again, it is based off of birth. The only way to move up is twofold. One, you die. And you do a really good job at doing your job, and you can then maybe move up. The other way is through your specific role within your caste. And that is your jati. So if you are a Vaisa and you're a farmer, well, you might be a lavender farmer. That is completely hypothetical. And if the price of lavender goes up for whatever reason, because people smell really bad and you want to make sure that they don't, you then might be through, your entire jati might move up in the social rankings, but certainly not to the next caste. In East Asia, you have filial piety. That's going to organize society. And largely it's going to mean if you are blessed by heaven in order to be in a higher class, you are then expected to look out for those who are beneath you, but those who are beneath you should not try to challenge your rule or authority. And that's going to also be popular amongst all of these civilizations is also slavery, particularly in Greece and Rome. Now again, something to remember about slavery in the classical era is it is not like slavery as you think it is. Most slaves were domestic servants, and some slaves actually wielded a lot of power and privilege. And for a lot of the times, too, being a slave was just something that was temporary. You paid off your debts, you were no longer in slavery. Some slaves then wound up buying way more slaves after they were free. It was more of a fluid system. Also, if your dad got into debt, he could sell you into slavery. Which is kind of funny. Yeah, here, have my kids. I'm sure none of your parents would ever do that. Of course, religion is also going to, most of the time, support patriarchy. There are some exceptions. Again, Buddhist nunneries. In the early Christian church, I mean super early Christian church, before Constantine helps to formalize it, women are actually the primary leaders of religious gatherings. When the church was illegal and underground, women were the one who were doing a lot of the teaching. And it provided opportunities a lot of times for poor people and poor women as well. And again, most of these social hierarchies are often supported by religion. I know that was a whirlwind. I know that was a lot. Are there any burning questions before we go into our rubric for the essays? Can you repeat everything I just said? No. The answer is no. So let me just direct your attention for the last 4 minutes. Oh, I'm sorry, Daniel. What's that, Mr. Peruse? Yes, and that's kind of what I mean by how do you see the development of classical civilizations? Well, classical civilizations using religion helped to create what was the common cultural identity of that region. Not everybody that doesn't mean that, but what that means is that in general, here's how religion influences that. Yes.
Could you remind me what religion it was?
Hinduism. Okay. So just a few things that I want you to know. There are a lot of resources on this website, largely compiled by Miss Jacobson. I have to give her credit. Number one, we will watch this message from Robert W. Strayer. It's a few years old, but it's really fun. He's like, "Good luck, guys." Okay, ladies and gentlemen, if you haven't already, some of the best studying you can do is watching Crash Course World History. John Green's videos really align with our course. They align with the main themes. He is pretty funny, I think. It's not just because students have compared me to him. It's a little bit because of that. But that's something that's a good resource. Also, I want to point you to this. Under resources, you've got all different types of things, including, I'll change these review session videos, some multiple choice practice questions, all of the prezzies that you see that I'm doing, you have a link to here. You've got all the textbook chapters in case you want to take them. Miss Jacobson has some cram packets. And then also, I've given you I've given you tips on essay writing. So you have the DBQ, we'll worry about that later. But if you look under the LEQ, you'll see a couple things. And I'll probably just show you this and then we'll review this next time. You have the AP World History LEQ rubrics, which means the actual things that the College Board is going to grade you on. We can go over this. By the way, I will be in D4 tomorrow during the testing period. So if you want to come and do more review and things like that, the room will be open. I've given you outlines for each of the essays, but here's where I really want you to look. Past free response questions, and hopefully this link works. Ladies and gentlemen, if you click on this link, you have all of the document-based questions and long essay questions all the way back to 2002. That is a lot. If you write one of those essays, I'll grade it. Any burning questions before I let you go? Thank you. Have a good one.
I was eyeing him the entire time. This one's for me.